Well, it's grabbing some. Step on and off. No. Okay, so
Blue wire is always breaks. Positive. From the controller.
okay, so all the wires are coming back right here from the front. They're pretty heavy wires.
Yep. Especially some are heavier than others.
And here we're coming off the blue and coming off the white.
To the axle. To that blue.
Okay, right here's the problem.
Right.
Wait a minute. Let's see here. Yeah, right here, the first one. That's what I say. We can't have a problem on one and not have a problem on the other. So right here we got a broken wire, Art. And it's
On what wire?
well,
It don't matter if it's a ground.
it looks. Let's see. Got to rub the dirt off. Well, it's the black coming out of the brake. What the heck? They're both black. Well, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, but the two wires that feed them should be a blue and a black.
Well, what they're doing is they're coming off the blue on the main.
Yep.
With a red wire. Do you have a red wire down by your brake?
Yep.
Okay, so that red is the 12 volt. That's the hot.
Right.
And then they've got a black wire here going into the white, so that's the ground.
Right.
So
That's
right now,
exactly right. But see, I was going further back to the blue wire up here. That's why I said this blue wire goes on a red wire, and then you got another wire going on the ground.
all right. So what we've got right here is, this is coming off the main, feeding into this hub right here, front hub on the driver's side, going across to the passenger side in the front, and then on yours, you're tied into the main on top, on the rear axle on the on the driver's side, and then it's going across to the passenger side on that side.
Yep.
So technically, yours should be working.
That's right.
If this is the case, mine won't be working on either the driver's side or the passenger side, because this is broke here, so the power can't get over to
The other side.
the other side.
Right.
So there's got to be a complication somewhere between the main right there and yours. But I think we'd be best to start with this one, wouldn't we? Because
I would.
good job. Actually, I'll go to the other side and check with the meter.
Okay.
Just give me a second.
Well, you got a broken wire over there, right?
Yes. Okay, so
Okay.
I think we've got power on both of these on the driver's side. There's a broken wire on the passenger side, so I'll cut that and check with the meter and make sure we're getting power all the way back here. They don't know for sure. We should have power here. Okay, put my meter on DC, and we should have 12 volts. Okay, go ahead and step on the brake.
Okay. There you are.
Hold on.
On. Hold it right on.
I've only got like 0.3 or 4 volts. That doesn't make sense. I'm thinking we got to go through and clean up every one of these, but let me go to the back of the truck and check the voltage there first. Just to make sure that something's not haywire on the pickup. Never know. The brake is always going to be the bottom right, I think. Where does electric brakes follow this? Yeah, Bottom right. Okay. And then the ground is should be to the left. Right there.
Right there.
Bottom left.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Bottom left and
That's pretty bad that I remember that. You know what that means? I've had too dang many trailer brake problems. All right, so okay, let's see it. 5. I had 5, and then at the end I had 10. Did you press the brake and then squeeze that? So, but we still should have more than 0.5 volts at the brake. Art cleaned up all the connections on his truck. And we've gone through and we think everything's working now. So, we're just gonna test it. Turn this on DC. Nope. 0.2, 0.4. The best I got was 0.6. About the same, not much. Okay, so just to give you an idea of where we're at. I guess I didn't start out by saying this, but I should have. These brakes were all working, let's see, just last fall. Okay, and we really haven't used this trailer much. The only thing we use it for is storage and moving like we are with this trip. So I just want people to be aware when they're fixing to take a trip like this. You can't wait till last minute. You know, we're about a week and a half away from pulling out and driving the road from here to Alaska. You know, some 5,000 plus miles, and you know, I wanted to make sure I went through all the brakes and bearings in the event that I needed to get extra parts. Now, I always keep extra bearings and seals with me. And an extra set of shoes. But the more important thing to me is that the electrical is all working properly, because mechanically you're pretty safe, generally speaking. So what I've done is we tested everything and we figured out that actually there was a problem at the truck with Art's truck, and we don't have ours here right now. It's getting some Z-barding done to it just to protect it a little bit, and then I'll take it into the shop and have them put it up on the hoist so that I can crawl underneath and get a good look at everything below and the brakes, and make sure that I have all the tools all set to go in the event that I have a breakdown with the brakes. I can just pull out my package. We picked up extra sets of brake pads yesterday, as well as what else do we get? Some extra def. We got extra lugs, lug nuts, in the event that we broke one of those off, a wheel lost a wheel or something. Extra wiper blades, headlights. Not real concerned about the headlights, but I picked them up anyway. We'll make sure we have all the extra oil, brake fluid, coolant I don't worry about because we have water. If we have to put water in, that'll get us to wherever we need to go, and then we'll do it properly. You know, all those extras. When we're doing a trip like this, we want to make sure that we don't need to depend on too many people other than for just a little bit of assistance. At least to get us to the next stopping point. So what we've done is, back to the trailer here, sorry, went on a tangent. Rather than depending on the vehicle to make sure that everything was good, I got a regular car battery, checked it for the exact voltage. It read 12.28 volts. It had been sitting on the shelf. It's just a spare that I have. And made sure that that battery was up, and then we basically connected at the plug to the brakes and the ground, creating a circuit, and then I went to each individual hub to make sure I had a clean connection there. So as I did that, this is the first one in series, so I just tied them together with these wire nuts. I'm really concerned about where this is at, because if and when this axle bottoms out here, which, you know, seems like a long ways, but when you got a good load and you hit a pothole or a frost heave, that's not a lot. Well, the first time this comes up here and hits on this U-bolt, it's going to slice these wires or break these wire nuts or whatever. So even though they're working right now over the road, I don't think it's going to work. So I can do this a little differently. I'm just going to cut these wires here. Actually, I'm not going to cut these wires. I'm going to take these wire nuts off, extend these wires here, sorry. I'll go through this hole back down on the other side. That way I don't need to worry about this problem right here. And in addition to that, I've got some wire connectors that I will put a little bit of the electrical grease in there. And then I've got these jobbers here, and basically what they are is a shrink wrap. You put your wires and connector in there, and then we'll heat them up with the heat gun, and they'll shrink right around the wire. And hopefully that'll keep out any moisture, because that's our biggest problem, is moisture. So here we go. As of right now, we've got a connection on all of the hubs, and I'm at this point right here with all 4 of them. And I'm going to go and just make sure that they're weather tight, and then I'll know that all the electrical is up and ready. After that, we'll adjust the brakes. We'll take apart these housings, take apart each one of these housings here. This one, I mean, from the opposite side, and we'll check the shoes and adjust them if we need to, but I think they're in pretty good shape. I'll also repack all the bearings and put fresh grease in. Yeah, we'll put the wheels back on, run it up and down the road a few times, torque the lug nuts, and this job will be done. So just to give you a time frame of how long we're into this, we're in this job, of course we had some complications, and there were 2 broken wires from the start that we discovered, but we're into this probably 3 hours. And in that 3 hours, we've checked all the wires, checked the magnets to make sure they've got enough pull. We've checked the emergency battery, so in the event that we lose the trailer, hopefully the breakaway switch will pull and activate the emergency brakes and stop the trailer before it causes any harm to anybody else, or you know, runs off the road or whatever. Well, hopefully it does run off the road and not injure anybody. But we should be in good shape. Hopefully we don't have to worry about something like that. But as a precaution, I checked the battery. We're up over 12 volts on that. We checked all the connections there, and we're in good shape. So here we go. I'm going to try to get this connection fixed. And this is always a terrible deal. Let me put my headlight on here. You'll be able to see a little bit better. It's always a terrible deal. They only leave this little bit of wire coming out of the hub. But we'll do the best we can to extend this one, bring it over and down. But for that, I need to go find some wire. Which normally would be an easy job, because we have all sorts of spare wire, but we're in the middle of packing and deciding what's staying, what's going. You know, we've got this place here to worry about. We're putting in a new cabin in the back, or restoring a barn or something for living quarters. And you can see I've already been sorting through this mess of all of my odds and ends for electrical wiring stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very organized with all this stuff, you know. Normally everything looks like this. And I've got all the different sizes all broken down, and different connectors and different screws and all those sorts of things. So but sometimes sometimes all the odds and ends. This is a tool bag where it all gets thrown in, and I knew that I had to go through this anyway. So I said, okay, we'll dump it out. That way I can clean the stuff that's junk is going to go out. Organize anything that needs to be reorganized. Put everything in the tool bag. I'll know exactly what I have in my tool bag. So if or when I have a breakdown, no problem. More electrical here, and I'm just looking for a good soft wire. This stuff is pretty heavy for solar panels. A little too heavy there. Couple extra cords. 10 gauge wire for solar panels. We got rolls and rolls of wire, right? But this stuff is a bit too heavy, a little stiff. Here we've got some blue wire. Hey, that's what color it should be. It's a little heavy. This stuff is a little heavy, thick stranded. Let's see, what do we have here? This is number 14. That's quite heavy yet. I really 16 would be lots. Aha, we might be able to find something in here that'll work. Okay, so what is this? Blue is 14. That's a little bit big yet. A little heavy. I mean, you can never have too heavy, but it's just hard to make the connections. Okay, here's some more. Hey, it's not the right color, but do we care? More wire. People think I'm crazy, but here's the deal. I hate shopping. Absolutely hate it. And if I could salvage wire and reuse it, I will. Hey, this is some good stuff right here. Okay. Looks like we make do with this right here. I like it. Okay, we're gonna get some more of these connectors. The box must have broken. Alright, and that will work with this wire. We've got the shrink wrap over there. Next step. Let's see, what do we need to do next? We need to clean those up. Put some dielectric grease in. Crimp them. And then shrink wrap them. Got the heat gun over there. Extension cord. Check, check, check. And here's the extension cord. Alright. Here we go. I hate being unorganized, and we've got such a mess with everything going on. It's just not working real for us. But that's the cost of doing business when you're doing something like this and you decide just to literally a few weeks before making a big trip that you are going to make a big trip. But wouldn't be much fun in it otherwise. Alright. So the schedule is such that I have to get this done today. Our neighbors, who are wonderful, wonderful people, have invited us a few different times to spend the day on a boat with them. And we do not have a day to spend, but we also have been off summer. Oop, lost you. And well, we haven't had an opportunity to go. Not on the boat at all. We've been to the lake and had a few tubs in the evening, but that'll be good. So I'm rushed to get this job done today, so I want to finish the electrical, pull the drum assemblies apart, adjust the shoes, pull the bearings apart, repack the bearings with fresh grease. Even though these have been done recently, I always make sure it's done. Sat over the winter, condensation may have built up. I don't want to have to do this on the road, although it has happened. I've packed bearings and then, in fact, I've put new bearings and then lost bearings in the way. So, just got to be prepared. All right, let's see if I can do this quickly and feasibly. Got our wire, we've got our connectors. The only thing we don't have is a lot of space, but we are going to make it happen one way or another. Okay. So I'll just disconnect these here. Wire nuts are all right in a pinch, and I'll make sure we have some on board when we go. But I'd rather do it correctly, so this is just too short for me. I don't feel comfortable with it. And if we were to bottom out, it would cut those wires, which means we wouldn't lose brakes on the back axle, but we would lose them on the front axle. And well, we just don't want to go there. So all right, so I am just cleaning up these wires here. They look really good. I've had this little can of silicone-based grease for a long time. I remember paying big dollars, like $2.50 or $3 for that. And well, nowadays, number one, if you can find it in that quantity, you'd be doing good. But number two would probably be 5 times the amount. Again, something I don't use often, but when I need it, I need it. All right, so we're back. I've got some larger connectors, some extra shrink wrap. I've already got the red one. Even though we're using a yellow wire here, I'll just keep the colors consistent. So the red is hot. Should be blue. So you notice here is the blue wire. We're always running hot on the trailer with a blue wire. I don't want to mess with these connections. I don't have time for that right now. So I won't do anything with this. I'll just keep consistently with red. Okay. So let's just see if these connectors work. I've already got the weather seal on there, and I've already put some grease. Of course, I've got this all messed up now, and I hate getting this grease on my fingers because you just can't get it off. And I'll smear that one full of grease while we're at it. Okay, here we go. A little long for the connector. Snip a smidgen off. Perfect. Got my crimpers. Make a good connection there. Sticking with the hot. Got my crimpers. Good connection there. Okay. Now, I'm just leaving enough wire so that I can run this through this hole here and then come down here with enough space. So I'm always going to leave extra. You can always cut off more. Much easier to cut it off than it is to put it back on. So, all right, that's that. Again, we've got a red. Maybe. Shrink wrap. Probably a little bit larger than I need, but I'd rather have it longer than necessary too. I can't see what you're seeing. I'm looking through the axle right now, but okay. All right, so there we're good. I'm going to strip this wire. Doesn't take a lot of grease, just a tiny amount. And on we go. Crimp, I'm just pulling, make sure I've got an excellent connection there. And I'm going to go to my red here. And one of my trailer wires here. So I got red going to the passenger side. I'm on the driver's side right now, and I've got the trailer wire. I'm going to do a good job of putting, in fact I'm going to get some grease on this. Again, I hate touching the grease, but it's the right way to do it. And I'm going to connect the trailer brake wire. That's going to connect this trailer brake to the opposite side. Is going to run the power there. And I'm going to cut this a little lower. And I've already got grease on it. Okay. I lost it. Okay. Okay, I got a good connection there. Perfect. All right. So, put the shrink wrap on. Feed that to about the middle. That's good. And we'll do this one at the same time. Feed it to the middle. Use the heat gun. It's got this nice little hook on here, so it deflects the heat. And the heat gun is just like a high-powered blow dryer. So I'll put this in like so. See how it pulls those wires right together. All right, very good. When we get done, I'll tape those up again, but that connection right there should be, because it sucked it right tight to the wire here. Good shape. All right, we'll keep going. Okay, now we need to do the same here. So grease. I'm leaving these longer because I'm going to twist these two together. Again, these are, oh, not that one. You can see better than I can right now. Here we go. So the trailer brake on this side, connect to the trailer brake on the passenger side. I've got grease on both these wires now. I'm doing a good job of twisting together. And I'll snip those off the proper distance to put the connector on. All right, so now what I'm going to do is pull all these over the other side, and I don't want to, maybe I can give you a better look. I don't want these to fold over the way they are, so what I'm going to do is bring these back, and I'm going to put a zip tie here so that it's not pulling on this connection right here too hard. So pull this back just a smidgen. Okay, so I've got that tight around our weather stripping. Got kind of a loop here so the wires are aiming back that direction. And then we still have plenty of excess wire over here. I'm gonna get a zip tie and pull those up so that they don't end up here and break off. Lots of room for to move and wear. So I'm just snugging that up. Trim that off. This can dangle, it's not rubbing. We've got a plastic grommet in here so it's not rubbing on the metal. Can't get back here where it can be cut. This one is good to go. Driver's side front axle, completely done. We're gonna step back to the driver's side rear axle. Double check everything there, zip tie everything we want, and then we'll move over to the passenger side. What we do for a hydraulic hoist, eh? Well, gotta start somewhere. There's no better place than concrete, I suppose. Could be worse. We could be on the gravel. All right. On this side, these connections appear to be good. This connection appears to be good. This is the end of the blue wire here. End of the white wire. So we've got our hot and our ground. These connections look really pretty good here. And this is going in the axle to the other end, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. Many times these axles are welded together in the center. This one may be arced without a weld, I'm not sure. But they'll rub in the inside and they'll chafe and they'll short out. So if you've got everything correct to the best of your ability, you may have to just run a cheater wire from this side to the other side, outside of the axle, just to make sure that it's not shorting out. You may have to get rid of that wire altogether. Let's just double check everything here. These are crimped on. They look good. Look good. No chance of them getting cut anywhere. So I'd say that's a win. That being said, we probably could put a bit of weather stripping on them. Let me see if I've got something that fit over the top. This shrink wrap stuff is good stuff. Don't know if this will fit over. Naturally, you want the smallest one that'll fit. So you can see here, this is where the connection was made, and this is where I pulled it together. It's still quite hot, but boy, that'll go a long ways to keeping things clean. So that was the hot. I'll leave that one blue. I'm going to put a black one on here. And that is awesome. Tight around the fitting, tight around the wires. That'll go a long way to keep any debris out. And that right there is not going to hurt anything. That may rub on the tire a little bit though, so what I could do, gotta leave enough slop for the axle, springs rather. I think this could be fine. Maybe I can pull this. Yeah, let's snug them up right here. That way they're not rubbing on the tire or wheel assembly. Perfect. It's right in tight. This does not need to move. This one does need to move. We're in good shape here. Okay, I'll cut that zip tie off and we'll go over to the other side. Driver's side is all done. Heading over to the passenger side. I think I've got everything I need. This side should go a little bit faster because we're now just tying the wires that run through the axle over to the passenger side, so we don't have to combine any wires here. I don't know how this is going to work right now because I've got the jack underneath here. I could probably take it out if I need to. I think I will. I was debating whether to pull the wheel off, but I think it might be easier to just let it down on the tire right now and jack it up again later. Alright, here we go. These two connections here, let me get my light, here and here, we're just going to tie those together and we'll be business on this side. There we go. Again, they don't matter which wire goes on the on the brake assembly itself, all we're doing is making connection, positive, negative, to draw that magnet out. Well, actually be drawing it in, I think, but. Okay. I'm gonna get all those set. I'm gonna use these smaller butt connectors here. Not butt. Got my dielectric grease. Probably not necessary. Put these on because these really shrink down, and some of these come preloaded with grease. These are not. Just gonna trim these wires a little bit. Looks a-okay, perfect. Okay, so now there's a little holder right up here. I'm just gonna pull those wires back a little bit. I think I'm gonna do a long loop with a zip tie just to keep them up out of the way. Probably be fine just the way it is, but just a little extra precaution. So I'll put that one like so. This one I'm going to just connect to the wire here. Okay, so that way it's not going to rub on the spring. Good connection there. Won't ever get pinched. Alright, we're in business. So just a little bit of extra work, and I don't need to worry about this side. Alright, let's go to the front. I think that one's good to go. But okay, so this one we've got the same situation as the opposite side with these connectors. Everything looks really good here. None of the wires are chafed. I think I'm going to slide on some of that shrink wrap, being right here. Suck those in, and I won't need to worry about this side either. Cool. Life is good. Alright, I'll wrap that up, and then we'll move on. Alright, we've got all the trailer brakes going. I'm just going to do a quick look at all of the brake drum assemblies. These brakes felt pretty good on this side, so I don't think I'll have to tighten up much, but broke the lug nuts loose, got it up on the jack. I'm going to roll this tire off to the side, take a peek behind, and see what we've got. So we'll get that off to the side, get this cardboard underneath here so we don't get too much mess on the floor. We're going to want to take this hub off. Once you break it loose from the hub, we can just give it a quick twist, and this grease cap comes off like so. Okay, so we left off with popping the hubs off of, well, I take that back. We popped off the grease caps off the hubs. Now I'm going to show you the proper steps here. Hopefully I can do this within about 10 minutes. If you just take a clean rag and wipe off any of the excess grease here. I mean, just because there's grease on the outside, I mean, that's a good start, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the bearings are getting grease in the back. We'll check that as we get into it. The fact that this is really clean grease is a good sign. Okay, at this point, you're either going to have a cotter key like this one's got here, or you might have a washer that's got a flange on it that'll fold down. It's called a retainer washer. That will keep this nut from backing off as you go down the road. So get yourself a pair of pliers. And I'm just going to straighten this out as best I can. I'll straighten this one out. And try to feed that down through the axle shaft. To give it a little persuasion. And you might have to do a bit of prying. Oops. Might have to do a bit of prying here. Boy. Okay, I take the parts, put them right in the grease cap so that I don't lose any and they don't get any sort of dirt on them. Okay, now this nut should be able to back off pretty easily. Get yourself a pair of channel locks or adjustable wrench. Oh boy, somebody's got this on really tight. It's probably a bit too tight. If you have a pair of channel locks, vice grips might work. Adjustable wrench is good, or the actual size that fits on there. But general rule is you snug it up all the way and then back it off a quarter turn, because we don't want to put too much pressure on those bearings. So on the back of that nut, there's a washer. Okay. Many times there'll be a straight groove on the washer. I just leave that right intact. And then on the back side of the washer, there is the outer bearing. Okay, so what we'll do for that is we'll just get a hold of this hub, kind of shake it out a little bit here. And I do not want to get that dirty because I'm going to reuse that bearing unless I find something wrong with it that I dislike. Okay, and I'm going to take that and right away I can see that this is in good shape. I mean, the grease is not black, it's very clean. I like what I'm seeing so far. Okay, so we'll pull this brake assembly out, the brake hub. The assembly will be behind it. Okay, and I'm just going to set this down, and the first thing I see is pretty common for these greasable bearings. So if you look on the end here, there's a grease zerk. And on that grease zerk, from that grease zerk I should say, we can go ahead and pump grease in here, and there are some fine holes where it'll seep out grease by the inner and outer bearing and seal. So you can see one hole right down here on the back side. Okay, let me get a clean towel. Let I'm just looking for any areas that may have gotten hot. But boy, this looks really good. The grease is not black at all. That looks quite good. Okay, very nice. And I'm actually going to just take this towel and wrap it right around there. So with a greasable axle shaft here, spindle, the grease goes in and comes out in the back here. And then we also get some right in on the outside here as well. So what I don't like about these is people will pump too much grease in. So you can see this black. This is all grease that has been pumped out too much through the back, and then it gets on the back side, and now you can see that these brake shoes actually have a buildup of grease on them. Okay, so we're basically lubricating our brake shoes here. You can see me breaking that off there, and I'm being careful not to get it in either of the bearing assemblies. In fact, I'm going to wrap this shaft in a paper towel here real quick, and then I'll clean this off as best I can. I'll use some brake fluid, get off any brake cleaner, and get off any grease that we possibly can. And then I also want to get all the grease out of this drum. I'm going to inspect the pads, and these pads do have some wear on them. If I go ahead and show you here what that looks like. So I would guess that we've got about 3/16 of an inch here, meaning about half the life of the shoe is gone. These are actually shoes. I kept calling pads because we were doing the truck brake pads the other day. These are shoes. Okay, and shoes go in a drum brake assembly, pads go in a disc brake assembly. On your trailer brakes, pretty much everything I've ever owned, ever seen has been drum brakes like so, electronically controlled with this magnet right down here. Okay, I'm going to take a moment, get these cleaned up, and we should be in really good shape. I'm well pleased with those bearings. Again, I'm looking for black grease, anything that might be loose or has a texture to it. I don't want anything, any grit in there whatsoever. So first thing I'm going to do is just cover up the area I don't want to get anything in. Not a necessity, but I like to. I don't have much of my good brake cleaner left. I'm going to set this one aside, and I'm really careful not to get it in my bearings when I spray this. I'm just trying to get the grease off these brake shoes. And the magnet. The magnet is not as critical as the brake shoes, of course. And I'll use some paper towel to wipe it down to start, and then I'll use an actual cotton rag. And there's a lot of grease filled up. But I've seen it, definitely seen worse. And I've made the same mistake myself. Very common. And I noticed the brakes on this side were not grabbing as well as on the opposite side. So this was not what I started. Normally I don't wipe this grease off the spindle until after I have everything clean. I was trying to show you, but it's okay. Okay, this is looking pretty good. We got those shoes cleaned up pretty well. A little bit of grease on the outside here. We're not gonna let that scare us too much. Okay. I've got a wastebasket here. Those are going right in, and that'll be emptied today because we're dealing with some highly combustible stuff. And we just visited with a good friend of ours, John Boy, last night, and he actually he had a house fire due to combustion of rags after they were staining some wood in their basement. Had a pile of rags. He didn't know about combustion and that they could just engulf in the flames. And in the middle of the night, they did indeed engulf in the flames. They saved the house, but still working on putting it together, and that's been months ago. Okay. And not that critical here, but I don't know. I guess I just like to have things cleaned up. That looks pretty good. Now, this drum assembly is loaded with grease. I'm gonna be careful not to spray it over the grease and bearing assembly. I'm just gonna wipe it out with a dirty rag. You can see the grease on there. Pretty hard for your brakes to stop when they're lubricated like that. So again, good thing about having grease zerks on your axles is it's easy to grease. The bad part is it's really easy to overgrease. Just using the cotton right now. You can see there's a lot of grease there, and that's a problem. The good news is your shoes will last a lot longer that way. The bad news is they won't stop your trailer when you need them to. Just inspecting the drum as I go here, and everything feels smooth. Looks like no wear that's excessive or anywhere it shouldn't be. Grease on the bearing is really clean. Happy about that. Seal does not look cracked at all. I'm just doing a quick inspection on the seal here. I've got all my numbers written down already, and I have spare seals and bearings. I won't carry enough for all 4 wheels, but I'll carry enough for 2 with hopes that we won't need any. But that looks really good. Okay, now the only thing is, this drum was really easy to get off. I want that to be really close so that when those brakes grab, they actually do their job. They stop immediately. So to do that, we can adjust this tensioner here. Try and be careful not to get any of this inside. And you could clean for days here. Now, let's just assume that those brake shoes are completely wore out or close to wore out, ready for replacement. You can buy just this assembly on the inside, okay? New magnet, new emergency arm, shoes, springs, all of that you could buy. In many cases, it's easier to take these 5 bolts out, or in smaller axles, it'd be 4 bolts. Take this entire assembly off. You can buy the whole new assembly, put it right back on. It'll come with a new drum, new brake shoes, all the springs, new magnet, and new backer plate. And that is generally what I do, just because the magnets get weak. If you have weak magnets, you won't have good stopping power. About the time that the shoes wear out, many times the drums are worn out. And honestly, it's not that much more money. I can't give you a price because every trailer is different. But that's what I like to do. This case right now, I'm very well pleased with what I see. Give this one last scrub. And I could put this back together. Now, if I had 4 new seals, and if these looked bad, but the bearings needed more grease or needed replacing or whatever, I would not try to pry the seal out and reuse it. Okay. If I wanted to repack that bearing with grease, which I'm not concerned about right now because they look really good, I would have to replace this seal, because the odds of getting this out, getting the bearing out, and then getting the bearing back in, seal back in, perfectly smooth, perfectly flat, and keeping this seal working properly, not very good. So you don't have to change the bearings every time, but if you pull the seal out, you most likely have to change that seal out as well. So I'm going to see if I have some seals that size, and if I do, I'm going to replace them, pack the inner bearings. If I don't, I'm going to take a chance because they look so good. Leave the inner bearings, put it in there, pack the outer bearings, and go again. So to adjust the shoes out, how do we do that? Alright, so the way we do that is right down here on the bottom. I think I'm going to try to take this out of here for you. And you can see this adjustment screw right here. Okay, and whenever I put these together, I makes absolute certain I put anti-seize on those, because they are naturally supposed to tighten as they wear. Okay. However, if they get rusted up, they have a difficult time doing that. So let's see, where are we at here? I mean, I could. They look a bit rusted up. I do need to expand these just a bit. So in order to do so, I'm going to have to crank this so it goes out. And many times you can just put a screwdriver in here and tap like this. And these felt pretty good, so I don't want to go too much. I'm just going to give them a try. So you take a screwdriver and jam it in there. If they're really bad, you can take the spring off. It makes your life a little bit easier. Let's just see how this fits. Before, I just want to do a real quick check in the back here, make sure I don't have any debris that might get in that bearing assembly. Wipe off this shaft really well. Okay, being very careful here with this cotton rag. dump out any debris. I give it one last hose down before it goes in. Give the brakes one more. We should be in good shape right there. Okay, so I could slide that over. Granted, I don't have the outer bearing in right now, but it's just riding on the back side. Okay, I don't think I can adjust any more than that. That seems pretty good. I don't want to go any further. And that's loose, so that'll be fine. Okay, what I do want to do is clean out any debris that may be gotten in the outside here, and then we'll repack that bearing. There's a race in here. The race is what seats the bearing to the inside. I'm going to fold that over so I don't get any. I'm going to get a clean part of the rag again. Start in. Okay, fold it over, clean part of the rag. Alright, I think this looks really good. Okay. Now I'm going to look at this bearing. Okay, so it's just starting to discolor a little bit on this inside here. That could have been a little bit of moisture. I'm going to wipe that out of there. Alright, now I see something that I do not like. I see a hot spot. Okay. Let me clean this up really well so I can show you. This is very concerning. And I will not put this back on and expect to make it the duration of the trip. So, right inside here, we've got a whole lot of burn. See the discoloration. So that tells me that that bearing got hot in that location. And if that got hot in that location once before, it'll happen again. I mean, everything feels just fine, which is strange. Normally, if you see that temperature change where it's gotten hot, you're going to feel or hear something, but that is a definite sign of too hot. See, if I flip it over, you see the other side of the bearing. Shiny, right? And this side, it's gotten hot. Okay. Now, I've seen these where they've actually welded themselves right to the spindle. They've gotten so hot and you had to really bust them up with a cold chisel and hammer. I'm going to go see if I've got a spare that matches this. So the numbers on the bearing will be right here on the outside. This has got a 0816 and a 15123. And I have all those numbers documented so that if I need them, I get them. So I'm just going to go look in the shop real quick. I think I have a set. I am definitely going to swap that out, but now it makes me concerned about the bearing in the back side. And I'm guessing due to this one being the front axle, they may have had it loaded heavy in the front and did not have a level load. And this axle was taking more of the weight than the rear axle, but that's just a theory. I have no idea. Okay, we're gonna find some bearings and we'll be back. All right, so here's the deal. This is the bearing that's got some burn on it. You can see it there, it got a little hot. I don't have this spare. It looks like I've already used the spare. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how I pack the bearing. I'm going to pack this one, assemble it. I'll get a few new spares. But for right now, I want to be able to get this thing out of the barn. So I'm just going to pack this real quickly, reassemble this, throw the wheels back on this side, take care of the opposite side, and then later on when I get the fresh bearings and race, I will go ahead and change them out. I'll disassemble this whole thing and I'll change them out. So right now, I'm just going to show you the pack. So if you're really concerned, you could clean this out with some sort of lacquer thinner, gasoline, anything that would cut, mineral spirits, anything that would cut the grease. Honestly, I really don't think there's anything wrong with this bearing. I mean, everything feels as it should, it sounds as it should, but I'm not going to take that chance. I'll save this as a spare in case I have a breakdown, and then go from there. But I found some different colored grease so you can see what I've got going here. So I think I explained before, I've been carrying around this stuff for years and years. You know, you don't use a lot of it. Some people like dig the bearing in, and you know, you really don't need a lot. You just need to make sure that all these individual rollers in there are seated through. And when we pack the grease, what we're trying to do is we're putting it in one end, and then we're packing it until it comes out the opposite side. So so you can just take a little bit like that, and if you take a gob in your hand, that'll be lots. Okay, and if we take the bearing and just kind of scoop a little bit like that, and I'll just show you in this one location, and I'm kind of holding the bearing like so, and I'm letting it slap down and hit against the palm of my hand, and eventually that grease will work its way to the opposite side, and you can see it starting to come out there. Okay, so that's pretty much packed. You can roll that, and I'll just keep doing that all the way around. You can see some of the purple coming out of my hand, and eventually the blue will come out, but I'm going to keep rolling it. And you can see the purple grease working its way out right there. And I'm just going to keep tapping that down, and when the purple dissipates and blue comes out, I know that that bearing is completely packed. And after that's completely packed, there's no reason to pump any more grease in. All you end up with a whole lot of grease on the back side. Okay, so the purple is pretty much dissipated. I'm getting some blue out of there now. Oops. You can see the purple's coming out, and now the blue is fixing its way in. I'm going to keep rolling around. And even just grabbing like that, forcing it in. Okay, you can see it coming out of the rollers there. And I can feel this bearing getting heavier as I put the grease in. Okay. Got in my hand here. Gotta finish up. You can hear, once I pack this through, you shouldn't hear much of that. Okay, I'm seeing that come through. can see all the purple coming out now. It's turning darker. You can see the blue coming. Okay, and you can see it kind of feed in as it goes. Roll those rollers. And I'm just rotating that in my hand as I pack it down. And I'm looking on the back side, and you can see now that that's full of new grease. Okay, you don't have to use a different color every time. I just thought it'd be easier for you to see. But that's how we pack a wheel bearing. And you don't have to have gobs of grease on the outside. That's not going to make a lick of difference. It's all about getting it in where the rollers are. And you saw me stuff my hand twice. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit on the outside here. More or less just to get it off my hands than anything. And I'll go the other way. Look at it. It sucked right in. Grab a bit more here. So it's not accepting much on this side. In fact, you can see as I put some in here, it pushed it out. There, that's a real good sign. That bearing is beyond packed. Okay. Alright, so the race is in there. That's the part that this sits into. We've already cleaned this out once. I'm just going to push this hub up. That bearing will slide right in. And remember, we put our parts back in the grease cover here the same way they've got to come out. So this has got a little bit of dark. Maybe that's the burn that we were seeing. Just gonna wipe this off real quick. There's plenty of grease in there. We don't need to worry about that. Everything looks fine here. Washer goes on. Everything looks good with this retainer nut. Alright, now this is the part that gets people into trouble. So if you remember, when I took this off, I said, wow, somebody's really got this retainer nut on tightly. Okay, so let me just make sure you can see what we've got going on here. You can't see a thing. Okay, so when we started, I said, man, somebody's really got this retainer nut on tightly. And what we want to do is we want it to be on tight, but we can't have it overly tight because you're putting so much pressure on that bearing and that race that those rollers can't spin. So what we want to do is snug it up and then back it off a quarter of a turn. And that seems kind of crazy because we don't want it too sloppy, but that's what seems to work best. And you know, I'll probably drag this thing down the road 100 miles or a couple 100 miles, even 500 miles, you know, after we travel for a day. And, you know, after having set them all approximately the same way, I can always double check them. I mean, you know, 30 minutes worth of maintenance may save you 3 or 4 hours. Okay, so I've got that snug right there. All right. And so now I'm going to go back about a quarter of a turn. Somewhere in that area. Maybe not quite a full quarter turn because these bearings have already been seated once. We're going to put that cotter key back in. Hopefully. Without too much trouble. Alright, and this up. Oops. Okay, so that should be fine. We can get that dust cap over the top without any trouble. Okay, that might be a little bit too loose just because those bearings have already been seated in there. I'm just kind of curious what this is going to do when I pump a bit of grease in there. Okay, I'm gonna give it one squeeze and that's it. And that's plenty for what I've got going on. Okay, finish this job off. We really don't need all this grease in here. It's not doing us any good, but I'm gonna leave it in there because if I need to pack it later, hey, I've already got some grease accessible to me. I'm just gonna double check one more time here, make sure. I'm not getting any debris in. This is gonna go straight in. And we'll just give that a tap with the mallet. If you don't have a mallet, you can use a hammer or a block of wood, whatever. It's gotta be pretty well come on, baby. Again, very careful not to dent that. It's on. All right, from here, wheel goes back on. A little bit of anti-seize on each one of the studs. And you're good to go. Okay, and we're gonna make a note to replace this bearing and race. Okay, I think the race is fine, but whenever I replace the bearing, I replace the race as well. All right, so I'm gonna reassemble the rear axle, and then I'm going to go over to the passenger side and do the same thing over there. Ciao.